esteemed members of the council, and the mayor, whenever she sees this, the members of the community, and everyone watching at home. I stand here before to speak a little bit more about March 10. The president talked about the community and the larger impact of March 10, but I just wanted to get a little bit of this date that is painfully carved in the hearts of every Tibetan, a date that changed the trajectory and the history of our people. So Tibet was illegally and forcefully occupied by the Chinese Communist Party in 1949. If Tibet was a free, independent country, today it would be the 10th largest country in the world. So on March 10th, 1959, when the Tibetans in Tibet heard that the 24-year-old Dalai Lama's life was in danger from the colonizing army, 30,000 citizens, these are nuns, monks, nomads, traders, scholars, merchants, they voluntarily mobilized and acted as a buffer, a human shield to protect the Dalai Lama and demand for Tibet's independence. They were not armed with weapons. They had that collective courage and the unbreakable conviction that they walked in together with. What followed was one of the most brutal military crackdowns in modern history. March 10th is now commemorated as the Tibetan Uprising Day. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, our beloved leader, was forced into exile along with thousands of Tibetans. 66 years later today, His Holiness is 90 years old. His life still continues to be in danger from agents of the Chinese regime. The resistance in Tibet continued up until July 1959. At the end, a staggering 87,000 Tibetans were massacred. Centuries-old monasteries, religious artifacts were destroyed. And throughout the years, over 1.5 million Tibetans have been killed and countless more imprisoned or disappeared. Today, Tibetans inside occupied Tibet are living under the shadows of a surveillance state so extreme that even possessing a photograph of His Holiness and the Tibetan national flag can result up to 20 years of imprisonment, torture, and execution. And because we live in America, I bring with me the Tibetan flag. This is the Tibetan flag, which is banned in Tibet by the Chinese. And here is a picture of the Dalai Lama. This would get you killed, would put you in prison for 20 years. Over 1 million of our children, some as young as 4 years old, are forced into colonial boarding schools, and generations of cultural memory being erased. China kidnapped the 11th Panchen Lama, Günden Chukyi Nyima, when he was 6 years old, making him the youngest political prisoner in the world. In 2007, this atheist regime implemented an outrageous law making all reincarnations of Tibetan spiritual leaders illegal without their approval. This creates complete control over our religion, including interfering with the Dalai Lama's reincarnation. They have renamed Tibet as Xizang to erase Tibet's identity and existence in the world. The 2025 Freedom House report still ranks Tibet as the least free country in the world. Just so the folks in the room have a reference, North Korea ranks number 3. Yet, the spirit and the endurance and the resilience of the Tibetan people inside occupied Tibet refuses to be those of the people who are conquered. 168 Tibetans have self-immolated, burned themselves calling for Tibet's independence and the return of the Dalai Lama. Countless protests and direct actions continue inside occupied Tibet, no matter what the retaliation is. And as painful as March 10th is for Tibetans, the Chinese government is terrified of this day too. Because this is the day Tibet stood up. This is the day Tibet's voice was heard across the world. And today we are just an echo of what happened in 1959. March 10th proved that despite decades of occupation and oppressions, Tibetans are not conquered people, and they reject the false narrative that Tibet has been a part of China. The Chinese government fears March 10th because it embodies our unyielding spirit, our collective memory, and our relentless quest for freedom. On behalf of the Tibetans across the world, I'd like to wish my deepest gratitude to the city of Columbia Heights for recognizing March 10th as Tibet Day and standing with Tibetans in our pursuit for justice. Just like the Resolve Tibet Act signed by President Biden into law last year, it challenges Tibet's authoritarian control by rejecting the false narrative that Tibet has always been a part of China. The act and the law also opposes China's interference in Tibetan reincarnation practices and further calls for meaningful negotiations with Tibetan leaders. The US has always been sending a strong message that the Tibetan struggle and the Tibetan struggle for freedom is far from forgotten. This proclamation today is yet another reminder that the Tibetan struggle is not isolated, and it is part of the larger global fight for freedom, human rights, and dignity. With allies like you and the mayor and the folks watching at home, the Tibetan truth will never be erased, and soon, we will be able to joyfully witness His Holiness the Dalai Lama return home back to Tibet and reunite with his people. So I really, really want to thank you. This means a lot. And on behalf of all the Tibetans, appreciation, free Tibet and Pögyalo. And once again, because we're in America and we can do this, long live the Dalai Lama, free Tibet.